What if I told you that a single announcement, just a few words from one man, could send shockwaves across the world? What if I told you that the trade war, the same one that once pushed the global economy to the brink, is not over, but merely on pause? Donald Trump is back, and this time, he's not playing defense. He's waging economic warfare, with tariffs as his chosen weapon. You may remember the headlines. Trump targets China with $200 billion in tariffs. China retaliates with tariffs of their own. Markets plummeted, factories shut down, and the world braced for a new Cold War, not of bombs, but of balance sheets. And just when we thought it was over, just when the pandemic, inflation, and geopolitics took center stage, the tariff war returns. But this time, it's bigger, bolder, and potentially more devastating than before. Because this isn't just about trade. This is about control. Control over supply chains, control over technology, control over the rules of the next global economy. Today, we take you deep into the most important economic battle of our time. Who gains, who loses, and who decides the rules? Welcome to the new trade war. It begins not with a missile, not with a tweet, but with a memo, a subtle statement buried deep in a policy briefing. Yet within it, a message that would ignite a firestorm. Donald J. Trump has officially declared tariffs are coming back, but not just any tariffs. These are targeted, strategic, surgical. They focus on semiconductors, the tiny chips that power your phone, your car, even your coffee machine. Tiny? Yes, but essential. Without them, the modern world stops. And Trump knows it. His plan is simple: to make America produce what it once outsourced, to force companies to come home, to turn global supply chains into national ones. But behind the simplicity lies a high-stakes gamble. Because tariffs don't just raise prices, they provoke, they escalate, they divide, just like they did in 2018. Back then, Trump imposed a 25% duty on Chinese steel, and the world retaliated. Now, in 2025, it begins again. But this time, the battleground is different, more dangerous, and far more connected. In an exclusive interview, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick revealed that the new tariffs would take effect in 1 to 2 months. He was clear: this is not just about economics. This is about security. This is about America's future. And with that, the gears began to turn. Investors recalculated risk. CEOs drafted emergency plans. Diplomats reached for the red phone. Because when America moves its hand, the world doesn't just watch, it adjusts. And this is just the opening move. The news hit, and within minutes the markets shivered. Wall Street opened with hesitation. Tech stocks, the usual darlings, suddenly looked fragile. But it wasn't just America. Across the Atlantic, European exchanges lit up. Infineon, ASML, and other semiconductor manufacturers soared. The logic? Simple. If the US shuts its doors to Chinese tech, European suppliers become essential. Investors call it a realignment. But in reality, it's a scramble. In hedge funds and boardrooms, calculators clacked, models were updated, and one word echoed louder than the rest: uncertainty. Because markets don't just react to news, they react to fear, and this time, the fear was structural. Ray Dalio, the legendary founder of Bridgewater Associates, issued a warning just hours after Trump's announcement. The US, he said, is skating dangerously close to recession territory. He blamed it on overcorrection, on politics overtaking pragmatism, and on a system that's becoming more volatile with every policy flip. But here's the twist: not all fear is bad, not in the markets. Some investors thrive on chaos, some bet against the tide. And for them, Trump's move wasn't a disaster, it was an opportunity. Yet for the average consumer, the picture isn't so hopeful. Higher tariffs mean higher costs on gadgets, on appliances, on everyday tech. That $999 phone, soon it might cost $1,199. Not because the tech changed, but because the world did. And markets know this, which is why the reaction isn't just volatility, it's repositioning, a shift in capital, in focus, in alliances. Because the markets have seen this movie before, and they know trade wars don't end cleanly. They leave scars. They didn't wait. They never do. Within 48 hours of Trump's announcement, China made its move. No press conference, no threats, just action. More than 60 US companies were hit with new restrictions. From tech giants to agricultural exporters, Beijing's message was simple. If you come for us, we will come for you. But that was just the beginning. Inside the walls of Zhongnanhai, China's central leadership compound, a quiet storm was forming. Ministers were recalled from leave. Emergency economic panels were convened. State media went silent, then suddenly roared with defiance. They called it an attack on China's dignity, a test of our sovereignty. Diplomats were dispatched across Asia, Africa, and Europe, fast. Their goal? Build a coalition against American pressure. China offered incentives, trade deals, and fast credit to any country willing to stand beside them. And some said yes. Because to much of the world, this wasn't just a trade dispute, it was a reckoning. A signal that the American era of dominance was being challenged. And behind the scenes, Beijing activated its real weapon, rare earth minerals. China controls over 80% of the world's rare earth processing, the materials needed to build smartphones, EVs, and missiles. And quietly, they slowed exports. No announcements, no explanations, just delays. Enough to remind Washington, you may hold the tariffs, but we hold the materials. This is no longer a trade war. This is a game of leverage, timing, and global influence. And China has just put its pieces on the board. The US moved first, but China just raised the stakes. One policy, one man, one move. And now, the world is shifting, from New York to Nairobi, from Berlin to Bangkok. The ripple has become a wave, because tariffs aren't walls, they're tsunamis. The first to feel it? Oil. Within days of Trump's announcement, global oil prices began to fall. Brent crude down 3%, WTI down nearly 4%. Not because of supply issues, not because of war, but because the market saw something worse, a slowdown. When tariffs rise, demand falls, factories reduce output, shipping lanes grow quiet, and investors brace for what they fear most, stagnation. In Germany, industrial orders have slumped. Japan's export forecasts were slashed. Even powerhouse South Korea issued a warning. Prepare for impact. Supply chains, those invisible veins of the global economy, are being rearranged. Suddenly, CEOs are asking, can we afford to rely on China? Should we diversify to Vietnam, India, Mexico? And just as suddenly, entire trade routes are being redrawn. But here's the problem. Change costs money, and time, and risk. Companies that spent decades building efficient global systems are now being forced to break them, just to survive the next tariff wave. Meanwhile, consumers, the people at the very end of the chain, are about to feel the squeeze. Phones, laptops, cars, even kitchen appliances. Expect price hikes, expect delays, expect frustration. Because when goods don't flow, economies don't grow. The World Bank has issued a stark statement. If escalation continues, global GDP could shrink by over 1.5% in 12 months. That's trillions of dollars gone. And the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to undo the damage. This is the cost of economic war, and the world is already paying. Taiwan, a small island, yet its role in this new trade war cannot be overstated. As China and the US circle each other, Taiwan stands in the middle, a delicate balancing act. On one hand, Taiwan is America's ally, a key partner in semiconductor production. In fact, over 60% of the world's high-end chips come from here. And on the other, Taiwan is China's red line, a symbol of sovereignty and power. In the shadow of the tariff war, Taiwan has found itself playing a game of high-stakes diplomacy. President Lai Ching-te has already made one thing clear. We must negotiate. We must protect our economic future. And the talks? They've already begun. But there's a catch. Taiwan is walking a tightrope. China's official stance is non-negotiable. They've made it clear any deal with the US could spark a geopolitical earthquake. Behind the scenes, Taiwanese officials are scrambling to secure a deal that ensures zero tariffs. But they know it's not going to be that easy. In exchange for favoring US tech companies, Taiwan may have to make concessions on key matters, whether it's allowing more US military presence on the island or even exchanging sensitive technologies. China, watching closely, is already sending its own signals. We will not stand by if the US pressures Taiwan too much. Beijing's plan: to slow the semiconductor trade, to remind Taiwan, you may be allied with the US, but we still hold the cards. The situation grows more precarious with every passing day. Because if Taiwan's delicate balance tips, if tensions flare beyond diplomacy, the world could face something even worse than trade tariffs. A military escalation, a disruption in global supply chains, an economic collapse of unimaginable proportions. The US and China are already staring each other down. But Taiwan? It might just be the flashpoint that sets the whole world on fire. This is a game of geopolitics, and Taiwan is holding the match. As the world watches this trade war unfold, one thing becomes clear. This is not just about tariffs. This is about global power. This is about economic dominance. And it's about who rules the future. The US has long held the keys to the global financial system. The dollar is the reserve currency. The US military is present on every continent. And for decades, countries have aligned themselves with the US in exchange for economic protection. But now, as tariffs rise and trade wars escalate, China is no longer simply playing defense. It is challenging the status quo. It is setting the stage for a new world order. In 2025, China is emerging as the key architect of the new economic system. They are influencing international trade laws, they are dominating the 5G market, and they are positioning the yuan as a direct rival to the dollar. And they aren't doing it alone. The new alliances are taking shape. Countries that once relied heavily on Western markets are now looking to China for alternatives. In Africa, Chinese investment is flooding in, building infrastructure, creating jobs, and shifting influence away from the West. In Latin America, the Belt and Road Initiative is extending China's economic influence, turning nations like Brazil and Argentina into key trade partners. But this isn't just about China's rise. It's also about the decline of the West. In the US, political divisions have deepened. In Europe, the EU is struggling to keep pace with China's advances, and countries that were once at the center of global trade are now scrambling to find their place in this new world order. The rules are changing, the power balance is shifting, and the US is now on the defensive. For the first time in a century, America's economic dominance is being questioned. And the questions are only getting louder. Who wins this new economic battle? Who loses? And what does it mean for you, for your future? The future of the global economy will not be decided by tariffs alone. It will be decided by geopolitical strategy, by alliances, and by who can control the flow of resources. The US is fighting to keep its place at the top. China is fighting to take its place. And the rest of the world, they're deciding who to side with and what it means for their own futures. This is the larger game. This is about more than trade. It's about the new world order. And we haven't even seen the final moves yet. And so, as the world teeters on the edge of a new economic order, we are left with a single question. What comes next? Will the US rise to reclaim its position? Or will China's dominance reshape the future? The stakes couldn't be higher. The economic battlefield is only getting more intense. And as this trade war evolves, so too will the dynamics of global power. The world is changing before our eyes, and you are part of this story. The decisions made today will shape the world you live in tomorrow. The choices of governments, corporations, and even consumers all have an impact on what comes next. So, how will you navigate this new reality? If you found this breakdown insightful, if you're ready to stay ahead of the curve in this shifting global landscape, then hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell so you never miss a crucial update. Because here at EconoState, we bring you the latest in global economic analysis, from the power plays of today to the shifting tides of tomorrow. This isn't just about politics. This is about the future, your future, and it's unfolding right now. So, stay informed, stay aware, and let's navigate this new economic world together. Subscribe now and join us for more. The game is just beginning.